Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we're going to focus our attention on a topic that we are all very familiar with and which impacts people from all different cultures. It impacts people from all different age groups and from all socioeconomic status. This all too familiar topic is anger. It can be mild in some people, but often it is chronic in the sense that it controls our lives. It has such a hold on us that often it results in the destruction or near destruction of very significant and important human relationships. Most of us can, in a moment of honest truth, of pure honesty, make a list of all the psychological and physiological damage resulting from anger. So suffice it to say that anger is harmful. It is harmful both to the angry person and to the person on the receiving end of this anger. So where there is hurt and damage, there is a crucial need for healing. The aim of this talk is to gain some understanding that will help us free ourselves from this powerfully enslaving emotion. I'll begin by outlining 4 misconceptions or 4 misunderstandings about the nature of anger. First, many people attribute anger to hormones. And while there is a real association between hormones and anger, it is wrong to think that hormones alone can make us angry. Secondly, people claim that anger and aggression are instinctual to human beings. The idea is that as people have been going through the evolutionary process, they have needed aggression and anger for survival. But there's no scientific evidence that supports the belief that humans are innately aggressive. In fact, what evolution has shown is that for survival to happen, survival really depends heavily on human cooperation. Thirdly, there is this belief that frustration naturally leads to anger. I feel very frustrated and therefore I react in an angry manner. So in this sense, anger is not only automatic, but anger is unavoidable. Like hormones, frustration is definitely related to anger, but it is not the whole story. It alone cannot be responsible for our anger. Finally, and this point is of crucial importance, is the prevalent belief that it is unhealthy to suppress our anger. So we are encouraged to let it all out. We're told to yell and to rage because it is healthy and therapeutic for us to release this anger. But this is the most harmful advice you can receive, and it is the most harmful advice you can give another individual. It's damaging to vent your anger because when we let it all out, we are actually adding fuel to the fire. Venting our anger does not reduce it. The more we vent, the angrier we become. And venting actually solidifies our anger. So think about you coming home from work, you were feeling very upset with your boss, and you're given the opportunity to vent your anger. And you spend half an hour getting really upset, yelling, shouting, accusing your boss of being very unfair. He didn't give you the promotion that you felt was due to you. Do you really think that the next morning you're going to go to work feeling all happy and fuzzy towards your boss? You're going to feel at peace with your boss? You are most likely going to feel angrier than the day before, and you're going to feel very justified in being angrier. So venting our anger is never really a good thing. So what does this all tell us about anger? It tells us very plainly that anger is a choice. It's the free choice of the will. You and I freely choose to use anger as a means or as a weapon to deal with our own pain, our own stress. It is very hard for many people to believe that anger is a choice because we tend to believe that it is something that is out of our control. We can't avoid it. It's part and parcel of who we are. But think about it. Anger is very deeply and very intimately connected to our thoughts. So plainly put, if we can change our thoughts, we can most likely change our anger behavior, change this negative emotion. Anger always begins with a stress. So the sole function of anger is to get rid of this stress, is to do away with this pain. Stress is the pain that we feel. So I feel that I was treated unjustified at work because I wasn't given the promotion I felt I deserved. I feel unloved. I'm worried that my children are going to fail. I fear that people are indifferent towards me, that I am not respected in the way I believe I ought to be respected. Whatever fear or whatever pain we have, this is the very thing that actually fuels the anger. This is the presence of that pain is what gets all that anger started. But again, this stress or this pain alone cannot be responsible for our angry behavior. So there is an equation that we need to keep in mind, that when we are speaking about anger, we're speaking about two things that coexist. First, we need the pain, or there has to be the presence of this pain, this worry, this anxiety over our children, over our relationship with our spouses, our relationships with friends. Things are going wrong. You've lost something that is really meaningful to you. You have the pain, and with that pain comes certain trigger thoughts. So if we put the pain plus the trigger thoughts, then that equals anger. So these two things need to be or are usually present at the same time. So we have hormones plus trigger thoughts equal anger. Frustration plus trigger thoughts equal anger. Venting, which will include a lot of my trigger thoughts, a lot of the accusations I'm going to be making while I'm venting, that equals a higher level of anger. We become even angrier after we finish venting. So what are these trigger thoughts? There are two kinds of trigger thoughts. There are the shoulds. The shoulds refer to our expectations. So we have the pain, and with this pain, we have certain expectations. But often our expectations are very unrealistic. In fact, often our expectations are quite unfair. And 99.9% of the time, our expectations are totally one-sided. They're about my expectations. I'm not necessarily taking the other person's needs or values into consideration. The other type of trigger thought, it's called blamers. Blamers are judgments. We make judgments, we label people, we use that verb to be. He's lazy, he's uncaring, he's irresponsible. These blamers help us fuel this anger, and we end up reacting in a very negative situation. So think about you coming home after a long day at work, you've had a really tough day, you come home, you find that the kids haven't eaten dinner, they haven't done their homework, they're sitting in front of the TV, the house is a mess, the kitchen is in complete disarray. And to add to the problem, dinner is not ready, you're tired, you're hungry, you were just looking forward to having a quiet night at home. So automatically your brain goes into this, they should have taken me into consideration, they should have cleaned the house, the kids should have done their homework, everybody is irresponsible, nobody cares about me, nobody takes me into consideration. All of these thoughts begin to flood your brain, and what ends up happening is a very explosive situation. So we talk about shoulds, our expectations, and we talk about blamers, our judgments, and they are often wrong and they are often unfair, and it results in a very volatile situation from which no one benefits. So let's look at the nature of the shoulds or the expectations that we bring into a situation. So first of all, people perceive situations very, very differently. So they will rarely ever agree with you or with me with the shoulds that we make. For example, you come home and you find your teenage son playing video games. You know he has a really big test tomorrow. So you should be studying, you shouldn't be so careless, you should be taking more care of your schoolwork. The shoulds begin to come out. But your son actually doesn't see it this way. He sees it really very differently. He says to himself, I've been at school all day, I've used my lunch hour to study, I have my notes in order, I deserve this hour or hour and a half. I'm going to play video games with my friends, I'm going to have something to eat, and then I'll go review for the test tomorrow. I feel like I'm really well prepared. Your shoulds and his perception of the whole situation are at great odds with each other. So he just doesn't see it the way that you see it. Secondly, and this is really very true, people rarely do what they should do. You and I rarely do what we should do. We know what we should do, but often what we end up doing is the very thing that's going to give us reward or is going to make us feel good or is going to help us, enjoy the time that we have. You come home, it's a nice evening, you say to yourself, oh, I should be spending time with my husband, or I should be, bonding with my kids, but you decide, I really just want to sit and catch up on some work and do a little bit of reading. I just want to use the time this way. And that's actually how you end up spending the time. So rarely do people actually do what they should do. The fact is, every individual comes into a situation with a set of beliefs and values that may very well conflict with your own set of beliefs and values. So when you say to yourself, he should, she should, they should, even when you say to yourself, I should, when you put this demand on other people, what you're really saying is that my beliefs and my values and my rules carry more weight and they carry more importance than the beliefs or the values of the person I am dealing with. And that just makes for a very volatile situation. So what we need to do is we need to control our expectations. We need to really manage our expectations really, really well, so we can change the shoulds. He should, she should, we should, they should, I should. We can change that. And in place of all the shoulds, we need to develop problem-solving techniques. Your son not studying for a big test tomorrow, you perceive it to be a problem. You are afraid he's going to fail, afraid he's going to make a mess of things, and you need to approach this from as a problem. How do you problem solve a situation like this? Then there are the blamers. They are the best, because blamers are judgments, and it's so easy for us to make judgments. We like to make judgments because when I judge, I free myself of all blame and all responsibility. You see, you are rude, and therefore it's your rudeness that is causing this volatile situation. You are the one who is irresponsible or indifferent or uncaring, and therefore the problem is with you. The problem is not with me. You're just making me angry. So I'm free of all responsibility because I have very easily put the responsibility on you. What actually ends up happening is that we are saying to ourselves, I am a victim of this person's lack of love or indifference or this person's irresponsible behavior. I'm a victim of that person. What I'm actually doing is I am weakening my position. I am taking the power away from myself and actually giving it to this person. So the moment we label a person, we actually magnify the problem. We make the problem so much more bigger. we end up losing control over our own lives and our own behavior. Let's look at an example of how we can apply this. Your child has forgotten his homework again. You're really upset that he's forgotten his homework. He has an important assignment to do and the work's not going to get done. He's not going to get the grade that he needs. So your pain is he's going to fail. And then your brain starts, oh, all the other mothers, they have all these great kids. They're very responsible. My son should be more responsible. He should be more careful about bringing his work home. He's so lazy. He's so careless. All of these thoughts begin to take over, and then you end up exploding. You just can't. You want to get rid of this pain, of this anxiety that you're feeling about the future of your son. Well, the fact is your pain is valid. Your son is going to fail if he continues to forget his homework at home and not get his work done. He's not going to get the grades that he needs. But really, losing our temper and getting really angry and punishing doesn't actually ever really change anything. It just makes the situation worse because there's resentment that starts to build in the relationship. So we can change these, he should, he is, we can change it more to, this is a problem that we need to solve. So the approach can be, you sit with your son, you say, I don't like it when you forget your homework. I'm sure you also don't like it when you forget your homework. You are a responsible kid and you like to do well in school. So what can I do to help you remember? And what can you do to help yourself remember? And then let's look at an incentive. If you begin to bring your homework home consistently and find a way, and I will help you to solve this problem. Maybe we will let you stay up half an hour more before you go to bed so you can have free time to do what you want to do. So it's looking for a way to change the should, and the blame, to change it into something more of a problem-solving technique. Anger is a learned negative skill. Most of us learn anger from our own homes. Our parents have used anger as a tool to manage their lives. We process this as children, that this is an appropriate way or an acceptable way to act. It becomes so embedded in our nature that we grow up, we get married, we have our own children, and we end up teaching them the same thing. Oops. Sorry. So we perpetuate it. We learned it as kids. We teach it to our kids. They grow up, they teach it to their kids. It becomes a very vicious cycle. But we don't have to be enslaved by this negative emotion. With very clear understanding of what it is, we have to remember that anger is a choice. We choose to deal with our problems in this manner. And anger, to change this negative behavior, requires a lot of self-determination. You have to be really determined that you want to overcome this negative behavior and you want to become a more effective problem solver rather than be perceived as a raging, angry individual all the time. The only person that you can change is yourself. You cannot change anyone else. People's views and values are different from your own. So the only control you have is over who you are and how you want to behave. There are many resources available to you to help you overcome anger, but we can always also listen to the voice of Jesus Christ, who very brilliantly told us, instead of all the psychology books, hundreds and hundreds of pages, Jesus taught us a few things that really apply to this topic. First, he said, don't judge, because judgment does get us into a lot of trouble. And a few minutes of reflection, you will find that when you get angry, you are doing a lot of judging. Also, Jesus asked us a very important question, is why do we see the speck in our brother's eyes while we are ignoring the log in ours? Again, with some real honest self-reflection, think about the last time you got angry, and you will see that the shoulds and the blamers that you have used, you do the same thing. You probably are also a little bit irresponsible, or whatever you accuse people of, you most likely do the same thing or do something in a similar manner. And then Jesus says that there is a great reward for peacemakers. So blessed are the peacemakers. In our endeavor to overcome anger, which is not easy, it ends up being a habit, and habits are not easy to break. But we must always remember that the Holy Spirit in each and every one of us is ready and able to come to our aid. So may God guide us all and help us pursue a path of peace. I hope that this very short presentation, which is based on a very, very excellent book, it's called When Anger Hurts. I hope that it has been helpful, and if you can just take a few minutes and reflect on the last time, the most recent time you got angry, and actually start to evaluate what happened before you actually lost your temper, you will see that your thoughts and your fears and your anxieties were the mechanisms that actually drove you to that, and that you can have control over that. Thank you very much for listening, and I bid you good night.